This is Kristen Heidert. I'm going to call the September 28th Historic Properties Commission meeting to order at 6:07 p.m. We have three members in attendance, myself, Myron Stockew, and Tom Chase. So we do have a quorum for this meeting. And Tom, you've got your minutes. So do we can review those?
Actually, I've got the agenda, but I don't have the minutes. Myron, have you reviewed the minutes?
Yes, I have.
I think we could. I think we could move to accept them without.
Yeah, I make the motion to accept.
Yeah.
Okay. And if there's only three of us, I would ask all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed? None. So the meeting minutes from August 24th, 2020 have been accepted. Again, I'm sorry, Myron, go ahead.
Kristen, do you second?
Yes, sorry, I'll second.
Go ahead.
I again did not make it to town hall today because I was swamped with work. But so there is no correspondence to look at the moment. I will try to get there at some point this week and collect what might have accumulated.
No public comment either, Kristen?
No public comment. I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. No public comment, I don't believe. I don't see anyone else joining us this evening. So for old business, I had planned to review and finalize the barn survey. I have fallen down on the job and not completed my part of it with Google Docs. I'm almost done with it. Jean gave me her information last week, so that is all entered. Tom, I will take your barns and get those entered in as well.
Great, thank you, Kristen.
No problem. And then Myron, did you get yours in?
I have not yet. It's
Okay.
been an incredibly busy month here for me.
Yeah, no, I know.
Construction and consulting and all this other stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, let's try to get it all entered and finished. I will, as I mentioned before, I'll take care of all the property ownership information through NECOG and Vision. So I'll get that data entered. If people can just update what is still standing and what is not, that would be good.
Thank you for putting that up on Google Docs.
Yeah, I had to actually talk to Sam to help me with that because I don't typically use Google Docs. And so I got in there, and it's very intuitive once you're in it. But I was between Microsoft Teams, Zoom meetings, Google Docs, there's like 18,000 different new things I have to figure out how to use because everybody wants to do something different. But yeah, it's up there. So if it's easier for you to use that, just enter in on that. Okay. The thing that I was most concerned about talking about tonight was the email that I got from Karen Fitzpatrick concerning the cemetery website on the cemetery database on the new town website. I know it had been an issue in the past about migrating that data to the new website, the new town website. Jim Stratos has agreed to maintain the website as it currently exists, or the database, excuse me, but there will be an annual fee involved with that. And Karen recommended that we use our annual budget. And I think it came out to $114 or something like that.
It says the total annual cost for the website hosting that the commission will be responsible for is $179.88.
Right. That seemed to me to be, I mean, I don't know what your opinion is, Myron or Tom, but that seems to me a reasonable use of the funds because I don't have the technical knowledge to know whether or not there's any other way to redesign that database in a way that would be compatible.
Yeah, if it is, it'll cost a lot more than that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
What,
think
what about adding other cemeteries to that database, Kristen? I mean, have you talked to Jim Stratos
Well,
about that?
the way it was set up, the structure is there. All we then do is merge in new data.
Yeah.
And there may have to be an extra tab created for such and such a cemetery. But it all should be just merged into the existing database. It was set up so that everything can be merged into one database.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and if there is a field, because it's in GIS, if there is a field that identifies the cemetery, then I don't even necessarily think it would require a new tab. You would just enter in the name of the cemetery, the second, third, fourth cemetery with every entry, and it would automatically sort the data by that category.
Yeah. It also was set up so that you could type in, for example, the word May and find out all the cemeteries that Mays are buried in Woodstock for up on the
Yeah.
database.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
So
really wish I
it
had
can
more
be
time
both ways.
but because Access is not he did it in Access, and I haven't had any time to sort of look at if there's any other alternative to migrate that data, even, not requiring technical help from from Jim. Just if there's another program it could go into. But as of now, I think it makes the most sense to just pay the fee and maintain that website, because we are required to maintain public access to that information.
Yeah, and I think that we really would like to expand it in the future. I mean, we had the drone survey of the East Woodstock, and we haven't done a drone survey of the Hill Cemetery yet, but we've got our own database that couldn't go into that. So I think that I think it would be good to keep it going.
Yeah. Well, I would suggest that we think about preparing a grant proposal to the State Historic Preservation Office. We only would need to get the funds to pay someone to do the data entry and collection, because the structure is already there, and there would probably be a small fee for Jim Stratos to align that database in, merge the database in. But if we can get a certified local government grant again for under $10,000, I think there was no match for that. And that would probably be enough to certainly finish doing the East Woodstock Cemetery and merge it in. And I don't know, maybe, I don't know how much needs to be done on the Hill, maybe to do that as well.
Yeah, and some of the Hill I think was going to require, volunteer effort on our part and the town the town clerk's office, but I think we can handle that. And
well, I don't think we should count on it, because look, we haven't gotten volunteer help either from the commission members or the people of the East Woodstock Cemetery Association to finish that project. So I think we're fooling ourselves if we think that we're going to get this done with volunteer labor. We're not.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say that, but history is showing us that that's just not going to work.
Yeah.
Not when there's a lot of concentrated and focused work that needs to be done.
Yes.
So maybe we can go for another certified local government grant that doesn't require a match.
What is their next funding round? Do you know?
I don't know. I'll have to look. And I know during COVID, they were not requiring matches for even larger grants. So I'll check the Chapeau's office information.
So the last grant was for 10,000, correct?
Right.
And the lion's share of that went to Jim Stratos?
No, no, 1,000, under $2,000, I think, went to him. Most of it went to Mike Raber.
Oh, right.
Who built the field, who did the research on it, wrote it up, built the database, and had the drone survey done and that data all interpreted and the map produced.
Okay.
For East Woodstock, we got most of that done gratis with a
Right, right.
small investment as a stipend for Emma Gwynn.
Mm-hmm.
But she got about 2/3 of the way through the database. You know, she's checked and verified all the stones. We have the GIS coordinates. We need to take photographs, identify the stones, the condition, and so forth. That's what needs to be done now. But she verified the map against every single stone in the field. It's got its unique number, and the database has that number, and all the demographic data is entered in.
So do you have a sense, so we would be looking then maybe at the $5,000 or $6,000 range?
Well, if I think to just finish East Woodstock, probably so. Yeah, maybe about 4,000 to 5,000 to finish that.
Yeah.
If we're going to also get a big chunk done on the hill, then that's going to require probably the full 10.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
going up to the full 10 to round that out.
And you'd want to use the same consultants for both projects?
No, not necessarily, but we could. It would help. And I think we may be able to perhaps find some graduate students who are looking for some employment in the summertime.
Mm.
I mean, that's what Emma was doing. She was working on a GIS course, and she wanted some real practical experience, and she got it. Now
Right.
she's working for the state of Vermont, doing GIS mapping and documentation and planning on all of their parks.
Oh, she's working, the Parks Department? Good for her.
It's
Nice.
AmeriWorks, that
Oh.
AmeriCorps, or
Yeah.
whatever it is, youth employment kind of thing.
Okay. That's not a bad gig. The Vermont parks are very nice.
Yeah, they're not paying her very much money, but she's getting great experience.
Right, right.
She went to school in Bennington, so it's like being at home,
Right. So do you want to check into the next the next grant round for Connecticut Ship, Myron, and then we can discuss that at the next meeting about pulling together the documentation for that?
Sure.
And I'm assuming we can pretty well crib the language and the structure from the first submittal, the first grant submittal?
Yeah.
Okay. Before we move on, I do though want to, if you're comfortable, if we can agree that we'll be using the funds from our budget, our annual budget, to support the current website, the current database on the town website.
Well, it was suggested in that email that as a result, we can request some additional funding to our budget. Should we need it?
Yeah, I feel like we have to figure out a way to spend our money every year. So I think that, at least right now, I don't see any compelling need, because what do we have every year?
$300?
$300, yeah. So we pay for the National Trust, and then we'll pay for this. And that will be for, I'm assuming, the one thing she didn't mention is when that starts. I'm assuming it's going to be the new town fiscal year. But I don't know when we would be expected to start paying that fee. So I will follow up with her to figure that out.
Yeah, it does say that the town is going to pay the $50 a month support and maintenance fee from July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. So we might have to start paying the $50 a month maintenance fee after that. I'm not sure.
Right, right. So certainly for next year, well, first of all, let's get to the grant proposal for the cemetery database, and then sort of talk through what our needs are going to be. Didn't we use part of our annual budget to pay Emma when she did some of that work for us?
Right, what we had left over.
Right,
the end
right.
of the fiscal year, you know, it was a paltry sum of $157 or something like that.
Right.
It wasn't anything to crow about.
That for a college student, that's laundry money, drinking money. So I don't think it was probably too bad for her.
Yeah. She was
And
able to live with her grandparents, and you know,
right.
it wasn't a problem.
She did
Uh,
such a good job too. So yeah, let's find out the grant situation for finishing East Woodstock and possibly getting part of Hill Cemetery inventoried and entered into the database.
Well,
And then we can use our funds, our budget funds, to maintain the website until, or if we find out another way to migrate that data over and where it can be maintained without cost.
I would make this recommendation as well. If we could find a consultant who could come out for a day, a cemetery preservation consultant, a stone, somebody who straightens up the stones and all, to come out for a day as a consultant and walk around with the cemetery association and tell them what the issues are with their gravestones, because so that they are really in dire need of work. There's broken stones, they're lying over, they're tilted
this is at East.
at East. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really necessary.
Francis, I'm sorry. My memory for names is not as good as it used to be, but we had Francis come out and do a little teaching thing for the New England, the New England Museums, NEMA, New England Museums Association, a year or so ago. And I think he would be very willing to do that. And you know, we could actually contract with him to do a day in the Hill Cemetery, and then he could, if you guys found the funds, he could do a day up in the East.
Or maybe a half day at each, you know, because I think in East Woodstock, what's necessary is they need to be made aware of the condition of those stones, and be informed of the treatments that could be accomplished to those stones, well, that relatively inexpensively, that straightening them and so forth, and how it should be done and could be done. But you know, that kind of a necessity, that it's not enough for them to hear it from me. If they get a paid consultant, if we could bring a paid consultant in, a professional who does this and talks to them about it and might be able to direct them to some funding that we can then channel, I think that would be it, because they're just not paying attention at all.
Tom, if you had the opportunity, would you be able to reach out to Francis and ask if he's interested in what his fee for something like that might be?
Yes.
Because that could be rolled into the grant proposal.
Yeah, or we use our funds that we don't use any other way.
Right. Depending on what he asks for.
Yeah. If he asks for $800 for the day, then that's a whole different issue.
Right.
Well.
And you know, I think we might be on that point, and if we're going to be developing a grant proposal, I think it might be worth also asking him if he could produce some sort of informal documentation, or documentation about his observations, because it's one thing to walk around with people. And I think it's important, like you said, Myron, for people to actually interact with him so he can express to them what the issues are. But it might also be worth him just writing up a quick memo about his observations about one or both cemeteries. And that can be included in their, in the town files and for their cemetery commissions, so that they have that information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in that case, I'm sure he would be looking for something more than what we could probably pay him out of our annual budget. So we could definitely roll that into a grant proposal.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I will reach out. I mean, when we did the NEMA tutorial, he seemed to be very willing to come back and help us. So
Tom, the other issue is if you want to forward me his contact information, if you don't have the time to get in touch with him, if you can send me his contact information, I can contact him.
okay.
And I'll let him know that you provided me with his background and contact.
Well, I think it's kind of starting with a call from me would be good, and
Okay,
then I can actually give him your contact information.
okay.
Yeah.
I see Jean is trying to connect.
Yes.
We can let her connect before we adjourn.
Well, the Hill Cemetery also, I think, needs to start with a good drone survey, so that we can so that we can improve the current mapping.
Mhm.
But in order to link that to the GPS, it's going to take some keyboard and computer time to generate that map. It's not just it goes up there and takes a picture and produces the map.
Uh-huh. Well, so Myron, you can figure it in. I think that the Hill Cemetery would not be totally averse to contributing some money to do this.
Okay. Okay. I'll try to find out exactly what that part of it costs.
Yeah, yeah, and in fact, I think that I need to. We would need to initially. We should be paying our sexton to go out and clear everything, all of the ground, you know, the flush markers, so that they would be visible on the drone survey, but not too long before the drone survey happens. Maybe we should be doing the drone survey in November.
You know, it
or
might
December.
be easier. It might be easier to get something like white foam core squares to lay them out over the top of the markers
That's a good idea, because then they're highly
the
visible.
day before the drone survey, and they'll really show up clearly.
Geez,
Right.
you'd need to get a whole crew out there to do that, but then maybe that would be possible.
It'd be easier than getting on your hands and knees and cleaning each one off.
Well, I was thinking string trimmer myself.
Even then, they might, if they're the same color as the ground, they might not be seen. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and even, I mean, foam core can get pricey. You could even just use big sheets of, you know, poster board, cut them out and
Yeah.
set them on drones, just something quick and easy. And Tom, how many stones do you estimate are flat right now?
Well, you have the thing that I would like to get revealed would be corner markers, and those are four per grave, and I don't think every grave has them. But if you figure that half of the graves, that would be 500, so that would be about 2,000 corner markers.
I think we just should spray paint them. What could possibly go wrong? We'll just spray paint them safety orange. They'll show up beautifully.
As long as
And they'll keep showing up.
yeah, wash away.
Yeah, what we need is like spray paint that is like temporary hair dye. It washes away in like 3 rains.
Yeah.
Okay, well that sounds good, Myron. Thank you for that grant suggestion. So we can follow up on that next month and figure out some cost estimates in terms of what we're going to put in the grant proposal for that. And does anyone have any other new business?
What about Jean? Is she actually here?
I don't know. She's muted.
Ah.
There
I'm
she-
not muted. No, I'm not muted. I'm very embarrassed. I thought it was at 6:30 and I was being very prompt. and my apologies.
Not a
I
problem.
hope somebody else began taking notes.
Myron did. He
Thank
generous.
you, Myron. I owe you one.
Better right.
So we were just about to adjourn unless you have any new business that you'd like to offer.
Well, I do have a question. Did you receive my email about the 599 property?
Oh,
Currently? When did you send it, Jane?
I sent an email to Kristen,
Okay.
and
599 what?
599 Route 169.
yes, the one about who has purview over archaeology.
Right, and
Yes,
I was surprised for Myron and
Gene, I tried to forward the same thing to Kristen, so
okay,
she might have heard it from two people.
okay. Now, Myron, there is an issue before planning and zoning, and it's been before historic district just a week ago about converting 599 Route 169, which is the old Chase property, the one that was the Woodstock Academy student housing for a couple of years.
Oh, the doctor somebody's house?
Dr. Spalding's house,
Yes.
yes. To convert that, the request was for mixed use, residential and retail. The people who have bought it now are the Rusty Relics folks from South Woodstock. They're the people who are in where Mrs. Bridges used to be.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of discussion about parking, and they started out wanting 34 parking spots and so forth. It's been reduced to no more than 15, but there was discussion about whether or not there should be an archaeological survey. And at the meeting of the Historic District Commission, Gail Usher indicated that archaeological considerations do not belong in the Historic District Commission, but belong in the Historic Properties Commission. And so, and Kristen and Dan were wonderful in the meetings, indicating the possible archaeological significance. And there, I'll leave it to you, Kristen. But
No, she's not correct in that. We have no purview over that property. We have no authority over that property.
well, then who does?
P&Z has the authority in the ordinance and in statute to require an archaeological survey.
Why?
That is written into their statute.
But if the plan for the parking space doesn't require subsurface disturbance, why would an archaeological survey need to be done?
It does require, and there's a rain garden as well, which will require subsurface disturbance.
And the removal of the well house, which is going to get you into the subsurface area.
They
determined not to remove the well house at the
Oh,
last meeting,
good.
but the other things still obtain.
No, Gail's not, I don't know who she's, she's not correct. We have no authority over that.
Yeah. She was citing Mary Dunn and Jane Montanaro.
But we don't have any of that language in our ordinances.
But it's in the historic district, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Then they're responsible for all of that.
I was stunned, Myron.
I don't think Gail is understanding what either they are miscommunicating to her what their understanding of it is, or she's misunderstanding what they're telling her. P&Z has the authority to ask them for an archaeological survey. HDC, I do not believe, has that authority, and we certainly don't have that authority. That is not a property that we are by town statute, ordinance, whatever it's called, we don't have any authority over that property.
Exactly.
That's what I was just literally flabbergasted at the meeting. But Gail was citing Mary Dunn and Jane Montanaro, though I would put, I mean, Mary Dunn is more in the, you know, the crucial role. So you, as you see it, Kristen, the matter is one for consideration by P&Z and that they're mandated.
P&Z has the authority to ask for an archaeological survey. And you know what I will do? I will follow up with Mary just to ask her where the confusion lies.
Okay.
Because
And
that,
I would suggest Gail as well. Follow up with Gail.
well, I will email Mary and copy Gail because we need that clarification on that. But I have absolutely, there's no doubt in my mind, we do not have authority over that property.
It doesn't make sense. From my experience on historic properties, Kristen, it doesn't make sense because it's not an historic property.
Right, exactly, exactly. Speaking of which, did we revise, has our language been revised to include Bradford Marcy Cemetery?
The ordinance has been.
It has been, okay, yep.
Oh, right away, as soon as it was
Yeah.
passed, the ordinance.
I just wanted to double check.
We had to submit the draft of the changed ordinance
Okay,
for approval at the meeting.
yeah. And that's if that was written into our ordinance, then if 599 was written into our ordinance, then yes, we would have authority. But again, I don't know how far our authority extends in that regard. And like I was telling you, Jean, the other problem becomes that these are local regulations rather than something that is mandated by the state or the federal government. So you always get into a situation, whoever at the local level has the authority to ask for it, how far you can push.
Yeah, we can advocate, but we can't require, not the Historic Properties Commission.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'll follow up just to make sure that, you know, it's funny because when I read your email, I misinterpreted. I apologize. I didn't get back to you. When you had said the P&Z issue, I thought you had said that, oh, I heard the P&Z could do this, but not HDC. And I just didn't think about it.
No, I was saying that what I heard anyway, and I may have been mistaken, was that historic properties could do this, but not historic districts.
Yeah, Gene, I agree. I heard the same thing.
You did, okay.
Yes.
Now, if it's a consideration for P&Z and if historic properties has an advocacy role, should we try to submit at least a letter to planning and zoning indicating the importance of?
Well, let's find out more details and then we can discuss that.
Okay, now their meeting, at the last meeting, they said it was either on the 1st or on the 10th of October to discuss this. They postponed it from the 24th of September. So the 1st of October is coming up very shortly, needless to say. I haven't seen it posted yet. But we don't have a lot of lead time.
Then they're too late.
Yeah.
They can't have the meeting if it isn't posted yet.
So that may argue that they're doing it on the 10th. And if it's on the 10th, any written things have to be submitted 10 days in advance, which means on the 1st, I guess, on Wednesday. I'm not positive. I think it would be Wednesday of this week, which gives a very, very tight tether if we have any thought of saying anything, unless it's presented at the meeting.
Well, maybe we should just plan on, if we have something to say, we could try to get on the agenda and somebody, Kristen or you or I or whoever, we can figure out a way to join the Zoom meeting for that agenda item.
Well, I don't think, Myron, it will be a public hearing. So I think it would be to participate in the public hearing, perhaps.
Which,
The next P and Z meeting was not going to be public?
No, it will be, all public hearings have to be public. But I don't know if there's anything beyond public hearing, if there are other agenda items. I think it's just public hearing. So it would be if that's the case, then it would be in the context of public hearing, right?
okay. Well, let's hope that one of us we can be in communication once we have the information, and then decide who's available can participate.
Okay, and Kristen, you and Dan are fantastic on this, and Myron, you would also be, I would be useless. I am looking, I've pulled up the planning and zoning page from the town, and the only agenda posted is for September 24th, which has come and gone. So
But
there's
they
no further agenda posted.
They did not have that September 24th meeting, right, Jean?
No, they did have a September 24th meeting, I believe, but we got bumped.
Huh.
And there are minutes from that meeting. There's also an issue about a gas station out in West Woodstock, which is a pretty big deal for
Oh, yeah.
that part of town. And so there are minutes from that meeting, but our discussion was put off. And for whatever reason, that was what I took in.
Well, I can
But wait a minute.
Come on, the suspense is too great. What are we waiting for?
I'm just, I'm sorry. I'm just reading the public hearing from September 24th, 7:45, special permit change for 599. And apparently Guskowski on the 23rd requested that the public hearing be continued. And so they have continued it to October 15th at 7:45. And the deadline to receive submissions for any new and updated documents for that meeting is 4:30 on October 5th, 2020. So we have a few more days.
Okay. Kristen, do you think you might be able to make those communications by then?
I am not going to have time to write a letter. I'm swamped with work right now.
No, I mean a telephone call to Mary so that we could figure
Oh,
out.
I'm sending her an email right now.
Okay.
And I will follow up with her to find out what our official role, if any, is in this. Hopefully I'll get a response from her tomorrow, and I will forward it to all of you, and then we can decide about how we want to proceed from there.
Okay, and then any letter that we draft for submission to P&Z should be circulated amongst all the members
Right.
before it goes.
But you're saying you wouldn't have time to draft such a letter, Kristen?
I am highly skeptical about what an archaeological survey will accomplish there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not convinced that it's not going to have any material effect on the outcome. And I'm not convinced that, given the nature of the impacts that they're proposing there, that we would find anything other than a lot of 19th century and 20th century fill.
I mean, it is right in the center village. There's certainly a possibility that a dwelling house predating the one that's there was on that lot.
We know there was a trading post there early on, late 17th century, but that is going, that would be where the parking area is being proposed. But the degree of impacts that they're now proposing, because they have revised their plans, would not be sufficient to impact anything that remained there, if anything remains of that.
So is it just drainage around the perimeter that they're putting in?
No, they're just putting in, they're going to be putting in, they're going to be probably doing some minimal grading and graveling for new parking spaces. They have a handicap accessible parking area that's going in adjacent to the house, to the north side of the house. But that is going to be a very, that is only going to hit, the edge of the old driveway and a builder's trench from that building. The water garden is proposed for the south side of the house. I haven't had a chance to look at the degree of, road cuts and reconfigurations that have occurred there over the years. And Jean, do you remember how deep they're proposing that water garden is going to be excavated?
I decided not to look at anything subsurface, Kristen, because I just frankly don't understand it. So I'm afraid I don't. But they do have, there was a considerable drainage study. All those materials were part of the documents for the September 23rd Historic District meeting, as was the revised site plan, Myron, for that meeting.
Is it possible to view it?
All the documents should be, I think, P&Z should have all of that information.
Online or in
Online.
Online.
Actually, they have
Although, Kristen, they did not have the updated site plan on their website for their September 24th meeting. It was only Historic Districts that had that updated site plan.
Okay.
So I think that's part of why they asked for the continuation. They were showing among the documents for planning and zoning, for that September 24th meeting, they were showing a site plan that they had shown in the previous round to Historic Districts.
Because they've reduced their parking to 15 spaces now.
Right. Were you
Right.
part of, were you participating in the meeting, Kristen?
No, I completely forgot about it. I meant to
Okay.
call and forward me the information, and I was reviewing their revised site plan.
Yeah. There were a few people who were listed just as citizen, and that was, I had no idea what that meant. I didn't know if you were one of them, but no.
No. All right, so click here for documents for September 23rd meeting.
So
Who made the recommendation that archaeological work be done?
No one's made it yet.
At the hearing, nobody suggested that?
They suggested archaeological sensitivity, but that was under the not that at Historic District Commission, but that is under the purview of P&Z.
Uh-huh.
I think, am I right that you and Dan both raised the possible sensitivity of the site in terms of the trading post?
Yes.
At both the P&Z meeting that preceded and the Historic District, or just P&Z?
Just P&Z.
Just P&Z.
And it was somewhere on that property, or more or less where it was?
Well, it was, I don't know more or less where. I mean, it was on the, it was on the side closest to the church, based on, I forget, I don't even have my notes in front of me.
Is that from Bowen's history?
No, it is from, well, actually, I shouldn't say that, I don't remember. Potential, no, you're right, it's Bowen, 1926. A shop by James and Jabez Corbin, who were granted 12 rods of land adjoining Clement Corbin's lot, and the map that's provided shows that corner.
Do you have a page number from Bowen's by any chance?
Page 39.
Thank you. But I'm hearing you skeptical of proceeding any further because you don't think there will be any material impact. Is that what I'm hearing, Kristen?
If I'm looking, if it is where the historical documents suggest it's going to be on sort of the eastern side of the property closest to the church, that is just going to be the gravelled parking lot from what I can tell. So other than probably very minimal grading to get it to a point where they can surface it, there would be no advantage to testing that. If it's a trading post, it would very likely have been the most ephemeral of buildings. And if anything survives, it would probably be buried pretty far below a substantial amount of fill.
Yeah, it's likely the cellar excavated for that existing house, that the backfill of that was spread
And
Mhm.
over
Yeah.
the original surface around the building.
And I would suspect that a building, a trading post like that, it would not have been built with a cellar hole of its own. It would have been, some sort of surface, essentially, post and ground or impermanent, very impermanent architectural building technique. And in terms of even artifacts and material culture, at that time, you're looking at Treenware, you're looking at pewter, you're not looking at a lot of stuff that survives in the record.
Who are they trading with?
We don't know, probably Native Americans. That's a
So
nexus.
there could be things that they would want in it, we shouldn't make those assumptions, but I agree that the likelihood is pretty low. Is there some sort of a simple technique of coring that might be most effective and cost effective, as opposed to excavation, a series of test pits?
You could request archaeological monitoring.
I think at minimum, that's what should be requested.
We could request archaeological monitoring that, there's a potential for resources, but given the land use history, it's fairly low. But to ensure against anything being damaged, we would recommend an archaeological monitor. And again, the question then becomes, if we find something, what do we do?
Well, that's what the purpose of the monitoring is, and you decide what you're going to do.
No, we don't decide what we're going to do. The P&Z decides what's going to happen. And if it becomes a money issue, you're opening yourself up to litigation.
Well,
And I don't think the town wants to be opened up to litigation.
P&Z can issue the go-ahead conditional on monitoring being done, and then some sort of determination of what will need to be done. I mean, we have to realize we don't know what's under there. There could be something there, but to require a big full an excavation of numerous test pits that takes days, and then all the other work around it is excessive at this point. But monitoring, I think, with the condition that if something is found, it will have to be dealt with.
I mean, if we need to, we can request photographic documentation, plan drawings of anything that's encountered in the ground. I mean, if something, if a body is found, all bets are off, and that's when a whole bunch of things go into play. But even that doesn't stop anything.
No,
I've
but
been
it has to
for
be
20
adjudicated
years.
somehow.
Bodies don't stop anything. They don't stop a thing. And the problem, and I think that monitoring is probably the most cost-effective and fair way to deal with this, both in terms of the resources in the town's best interest and the property owner's best interest. But there has to be a recognition that this is not a state or federal process with clear parameters. And this is a local requirement, and we need to be circumspect in how we approach it. Because it does open up the town to litigation if people start getting unreasonable about it.
You know, it's in the center, the most historic portion of the.
Myron, it doesn't matter. They don't care. The town cares about getting sued. That's what they care about. So we need to, if we're going to do this, and I do think it's a good idea to do monitoring, we have to be very clear about how that should be pursued. Because these property owners are not people to shy away from confrontation.
I think that's a diplomatic way of saying it. Kristen, if there is monitoring, who is financially responsible for the monitoring?
The property owner.
The property owners would be.
Yeah, it's part of a permitting process.
Yeah.
So that would be, you know, like in any monitoring situation, it would be coordination with the construction contractor. I can't envision any more than a day's worth of time to do the monitoring out there, and then a letter memorandum to the client and to the town. And I would even recommend forwarding a letter to SHPO just for their files so they know that work has been done there. And I would also say, you know, pending something dramatic or museum exhibit worthy, no artifacts are collected. It's strict monitoring.
Now, that's in the National Register District. Does the SHPO need to be notified that that's happening?
No,
That kind of construction is happening there?
no, because they're not using state money or federal money, and they're not requiring any special permits to do it. The only thing that would trigger SHPO involvement is if there was state or federal monies involved or permitting involved.
Well,
It's
they're
not
asking for a
issue.
town special permit. They're asking for a P&Z special permit, right?
Right.
But that's different.
That is not the same thing. It's a National Register District. There is no SHPO involvement unless there is some sort of state or federal money or permit trigger.
Hey, sorry to interrupt you guys, but Crystal scheduled both of these meetings tonight, and they have a conservation commission at 7, so we'll have to wrap up soon.
Okay,
Well,
So,
Kristen,
Jean,
if you talk to Mary Dunn, get back to us and what she says, and we can have another email or Zoom conversation or whatever.
okay, that sounds good.
If we have a Zoom conversation, I think would we have to notice it as an emergency meeting, that sort of thing?
Not if this property is not under our authority.
Right. So
Okay.
I move we
Right.
adjourn.
All right, so let's let Concom get going. It is, I want to make a motion to adjourn at 7 p.m. Can I get
Second?
Okay.
anyone, all in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned.